Do you find it pleasing, or do you
Yeah,
find that
it grew on me. At first, I did not.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like something that when you first smell it, you go, "Oh my gosh, that's horrible."
Yeah, it's
But
kind
then
of
after a
funky
while, you
and
kind of
weird,
go,
and then
"It is a little funky." Yeah, funky is a good word.
yeah. All right, guys, welcome to Podcasting on a Plane. And if you want to see that full video, check out Patreon for the whole version. Now, this is a view of aviation from both sides of the mic, and it's where I give you straight talk about the greatest thing ever, which, of course, is aviation, right? And it doesn't get much straight on what we're talking about today. My name is Brandon Gonzalez, and I had a question recently from an individual, and he wants to remain anonymous. Why? Well, you know how these stories go, right? The ones that start with, I have a friend who may have made a little mistake and heard you fill out a form, something about NASA, and he won't get in trouble. Yeah. So anyway, we got to talking about the NASA ASRS program and whether or not it's really a get-out-of-jail-free card. So if you're an experienced aviator, my guess is that you've probably filled out a NASA form in your life, maybe a few of them. And if you're new to this, well, today we're talking about a safety reporting system that makes an incredible difference in how the aviation industry in this country evolves. And they give you an incentive to participate. And you may, in fact, be granted immunity in the case of certain regulatory offenses if you were to make that mistake. So as you might guess, ATC stuff accounts for a great deal of the submissions to this program. And the question I often get, though, is, while pilots can submit forms to protect themselves when they make a mistake, well, can ATC do the same? Like, what if a controller makes a mistake? Can they just drop a NASA form and walk away clean? Well, the answer basically is actually yes, we can, just like you. And we have an option right there on the NASA ASRS website. You can click it and say your controller, and that's it. But we actually usually use our own portal to our own internal program. And it's called ATSAP, ATSAP, which means the Air Traffic Safety Action Program. And it's pretty much exactly the same thing. There's even an option to submit it to the NASA ASRS website database too. So what it does is it provides immunity for most unintentional operational deviations and errors. And just like for pilots, it doesn't work if whatever happened was willful or illegal or if an actual accident resulted. So, on today's show, safety reporting systems, what they are, what they're for, and what they're not for. But first, let's read an iTunes review. As promised, if you leave a nice iTunes review, I'll probably read it on the show. So today, let's hear from DBalent7. Hope I got that pronunciation right. They say, having seemingly worked in just about every aviation-related field out there, Brandon Gonzalez brings a unique, multi-angled perspective to the world of aviation podcasts. Whether he's sharing recent news, interviewing a guest, or discussing and exploring a particular topic, Brandon always seems to be able to hit that perfect combination of delivering detailed facts and analysis while remaining entertaining and engaging to listen to. Podcasting on a Plane is a highly worthwhile show to listen to for anyone interested in aviation at any stage of their journey. Great stuff, and keep up the good work. Well, DBalent7, thank you so much for that review. That was awesome. And I really appreciate the kind words. And if anybody else wants to hear their review read on the show, well, all you got to do is leave one. And before we get any further into the show, I want to give a shout out and publicly congratulate a couple of guys. First off, Ben. Different Ben. He passed his MEI check ride, and he's a military helicopter instructor, and he's going to be now specializing in transitioning military helicopter pilots to getting civilian certificates. So if that sounds like you, and you want me to hook you up with him, send me an email. And also my student Jeff. Different Jeff. He earned that instrument rating he's been working on for so long, and he's the first guy actually that I started doing remote training with. He nailed his instrument check ride, and in particular the oral portion. So, gentlemen, well done. And you all are probably going to be hearing from one or maybe even both of these guys in the near future. Oh, also as promised, I put out an anonymous airport picture on Instagram a couple days ago, and I promised to mention the first 5 comments to guess the airport correctly. I only got 4 correct ones, but they are ATC Brat, Anthony Aviator, VH Rivera, and Dan Henry. Well done. Now, since this episode is all about avoiding legal troubles, I tell you what, I found a story on AOPA's website, and it's kind of a funny one, I guess, but it does fit in with the idea of avoiding legal trouble for sure. Remember a while back, there's a whole bunch of laws that went into effect that made it illegal to use hangars for non-aviation purposes? Well, I guess in the state of Hawaii, it was actually a criminal offense. And in this AOPA story, the example's kind of silly, but it's kind of eye-opening. So check this out. The article is called Hawaii Decriminalizes Airport Violations. It's by Jim Moore at AOPA. It says AOPA achieved its top legislative priority in Hawaii on July 5th with the governor's signature of a bill that decriminalizes minor airport violations that previously put the certificates and livelihoods of aircraft owners in peril. The signature of the Hawaii governor turned a potential criminal conviction for parking in the wrong place or storing non-aeronautical items like golf clubs in airport hangars into just a civil infraction. There's a world of difference between the two, as AOPA Western Pacific Regional Manager Melissa McCaffrey noted in a March letter to the chairman of the state's House Committee on Judiciary. She says, quote, "A criminal record has ramifications that can destroy careers. If a professional pilot has been convicted of a misdemeanor, he must declare so on his aviation medical forms, job applications, and is banned from flying to several countries. Individuals who have chosen to serve our country and hold government security clearances, military, reserve, or DoD, they're also put in jeopardy by the statute. Criminal charges can and do result in the loss of clearances, effectively costing them their jobs," end quote. That letter was part of a broad-based, years-long effort to secure relief from a practice that took many aircraft owners by surprise when the state first began charging hangar tenants with a crime for storing a golf cart or a pitching wedge inside the T-hangars at Honolulu International Airport. AOPA joined local pilots in protesting the state's aggressive and disproportionate enforcement and supported legislation in 2014 to decriminalize such violations. Frustration followed, and AOPA renewed the push in 2017, starting with the formation of an aviation caucus in the state legislature. That group met for the first time in February 2017, and as lawmakers learned about this and other aviation-related issues from experts, a new bill got a more favorable reception, though still it did not pass. In 2018, AOPA kept the pressure up and worked with lawmakers to introduce a new bill, which became Senate Bill 2619. Hearings were held, and AOPA joined local pilots, business owners, and aviation groups testifying in support of its passage. McCaffrey offered suggestions to improve the bill under consideration, most of which were adopted, though lawmakers ultimately decided to allow for a $500 maximum civil penalty sought by the State Department of Transportation rather than the $200 maximum fine that McCaffrey had suggested was appropriate. Michael Bailey, submitting written testimony as an individual, urged lawmakers to, quote, "Please pay close attention to any testimony submitted by Melissa McCaffrey. Her input will give us our best opportunity to bring Hawaii statutes in line with the rest of the nation. She has data and experience at a national level that we lack locally. We need to stop jeopardizing pilot careers over this relatively trivial issue at our state airports. No other state does this to their pilots," end quote. The Experimental Aircraft Association, National Business Aviation Association, local aviation businesses, and many other pilots and aircraft owners joined the chorus calling for decriminalization, and the bill passed through a series of votes in April and May without opposition. Wow. Again, that article from AOPA by Jim Moore. Okay, well, I don't know about parking your golf cart in your hangar, but who here has done something they wish they hadn't in an airplane? Hands up. Don't worry, this isn't a ramp check. I'm not from that part of the FAA. Plus, I can't see you. You know. Okay, now hands up if you've maybe made a mistake and there's a decent chance somebody saw it. Okay, well, for those of you with your hands up, which better be most of you, and if you're wondering, yes, unfortunately, my hand is still up too. Well, what'd you do? I'm kidding. I'm guessing, though, that you filled out an NASA form. So for those of you new to aviation, there's a safety reporting system hosted by none other than NASA, which allows a pilot who may have made an unintentional mistake to more or less fill out a form which gives a lot of really good information about the things that transpired that led to the mistake, and it may, in fact, grant them immunity against a civil penalty for whatever it is that may have occurred. You may find it surprising, but safety reporting systems go back as far as World War II. The idea is that when something, let's say, undesirable happens, you can voluntarily report it with anonymity, and then this incentivizes the reporting of frustrating and potentially dangerous situations. Organizations can improve safety and, frankly, save money by learning what's actually happening in complex operating environments. And to further incentivize individual reporting, there's usually some sort of protection or immunity that's afforded to the reporter or the informant in exchange for the data. In aviation, the company that pioneered this type of program was actually United Airlines. By the early 70s, they had a fully functional internal program, and it was uncovering all sorts of human factors and CRM issues. Most aviation safety reporting programs can trace back to United's program, and it was United's program which gave a grim early warning just a couple weeks before 92 people lost their lives in a tragic accident, which, like most, never should have happened. The accident flight in question was TWA's Flight 514. It was a Boeing 727 en route from Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio to Washington Dulles. It crashed into Mount Weather, Virginia on Sunday, December 1st, 1974. All 92 aboard, 85 passengers, and 7 crew members were killed. In stormy conditions late in the morning, the aircraft was in controlled flight and impacted a very low mountain about 30 miles northwest of its revised destination. See, the flight was scheduled for Washington National, but it was diverted to Dulles when high crosswinds, east at 28 knots and gusting to 49, prevented safe operations on the main north-south runway at National. The flight was being vectored for a non-precision approach to runway 12 at Dulles. Controllers cleared the flight down to 7,000 before clearing them for the approach, while not on a published segment. The jetliner began a descent to 1,800 feet, shown on the first checkpoint for the published approach. The data recorder indicated that there was some confusion in the cockpit over whether or not they were still under a radar-controlled approach segment, which would allow them to descend safely. After reaching 1,800, there were some 1 to 200 foot altitude deviations, with the flight crew discussed as they were encountering heavy downdrafts and reduced visibility in snow. The plane impacted the west slope of Mount Weather, Virginia, at 1,670 feet above sea level, at approximately 230 knots. The Accident Investigation Board was split in its decision as to whether the flight crew or air traffic control were responsible. The majority absolved the controllers, as the plane was not on a published approach segment. The dissenting opinion was that the flight had been radar vectored, though. Terminology between pilots and controllers differed without either group being aware of the discrepancy. It was common practice at the time for controllers to release a flight to its own navigation with the phraseology, "cleared for the approach." And flight crews commonly believed that that was also authorization to descend to the altitude at which the final segment of the approach began. No clear indication had been given by controllers to Flight 514 that they were no longer on a radar vector segment and therefore were responsible for their own navigation. Procedures were clarified after this accident. Controllers now state, maintain, whatever the specified altitude is, until established on a portion of the approach, or words to that effect. And pilots now understand that previously assigned altitudes prevail until an altitude change is authorized on the published approach segment the aircraft is currently flying. Ground proximity detection equipment was also mandated for all airlines. Now, those were a few really important changes to our system that were made as a result of the crash. And believe me, we're going to talk about those in a future episode. But as it relates to safety reporting today, during the NTSB investigation, it was discovered that a United Airlines flight had very narrowly avoided the same fate during the same approach at the same location only 6 weeks prior. But only they knew about it. Yeah. So there was a clear need for some way to report unsafe situations like this, and like most regulations, there was finally enough blood with which to force some positive action. So let's check out what the website check6.com has to say as it pertains to the safety reporting systems after this crash. They say massive improvements in airline safety resulted from the investigation of TWA Flight 514's crash. The NTSB discovered that in October of 1974, just 6 weeks before the mishap, a United Airlines crew had very narrowly escaped the same fate during the same approach at the same location. United Airlines had, however, recently instituted an internal reporting program, the Flight Safety Awareness Program, that encouraged crew members to report anonymously any incident they felt affected safety. The United pilots involved in the October incident reported the occurrence to their company program and highlighted the ambiguous nature of the approach. News of the potential pitfall spread throughout United, and the FAA was notified of the situation. However, there did not exist at the time any generally accepted method to assure the broad and expeditious dissemination of this information to flight crews and dispatchers. And the NTSB commented that based on the United incident and the TWA 514 accident, there was the need for a national incident reporting system. And as a result, the FAA set up, under the auspices of NASA, the Aviation Safety Reporting System in May of 1975. It was a confidential, non-punitive incident reporting system run by a neutral, yet governmental, third party. Guidelines for communication between pilots and air traffic controllers have been clarified for operating on unpublished routes, and new pilots are drilled on what cleared for the approach actually means. So the information given to the NASA ASRS program goes back as far as about 1981. So what I want to do is read to you guys from the NASA ASRS program briefing, and you can get this online. I'm going to leave a link, of course, in the show notes. But all pilots, new, experienced, wherever you are, you should probably take another look at this thing because it really talks about exactly how this program gets carried out. The first part, of course, is the overview. It says, the concept and mission of the NASA ASRS system is to receive, process, and analyze voluntarily submitted incident reports from pilots, air traffic controllers, dispatchers, cabin crew, maintenance technicians, and many others. Reports submitted to ASRS may describe both unsafe occurrences and hazardous situations. Information is gathered from these reports and disseminated to stakeholders. ASRS's particular concern is the quality of human performance in the National Airspace System. The purpose, of course, being to identify deficiencies and discrepancies in the NAS and to improve the current aviation system, and to provide data for planning and improvements to the future National Airspace System, which of course enhance the basis for human factors research and recommendations for future aviation procedures, operations, facilities, and equipment. Back as far as World War II, industry and military recognized the value of voluntary incident reporting. In 1958, the need for a U.S. incident data system was raised during FAA enactment hearings. In October of 1974, United Airlines had an incident which foreshadowed the TWA 514 accident. December 1974, the TWA 514 accident. In April 1975, there was a study done of the National Air Transportation System as a result of the Secretary's task force on the FAA safety mission. In May 1975, the Aviation Safety Reporting System was implemented by the FAA. May 9, 1975, Advisory Circular 00-46A was issued, and in April 1976, ASRS was established between NASA and the FAA. So who runs this place? Well, the ASRS staff is composed of highly experienced pilots, air traffic controllers, and mechanics, as well as a management team that possesses aviation and human factors experience. ASRS's analysts' experience is comprised of over 600 cumulative years of aviation expertise covering the full spectrum of aviation activity: air carrier, corporate, military, and general aviation, air traffic control and towers, TRACON centers, and military facilities. An analyst's cumulative flight time exceeds 200,000 hours in over 50 different aircraft. In addition, the ASRS staff has human factors and psychology research experience in areas such as training, fatigue, crew resource management, user interface design, usability evaluations, and research methodology. And now, we're going to get to the fun part, the immunity concept. This is from paragraph 9C in FAA Advisory Circular 0046E. It states, enforcement restrictions. The FAA considers the filing of a report with NASA concerning an incident or occurrence involving a violation to be indicative of a constructive attitude. Such an attitude will tend to prevent future violations. Accordingly, although a finding of violation may be made, neither a civil penalty nor certificate suspension will be imposed if, number 1, the violation was inadvertent and not deliberate. Number 2, the violation did not involve a criminal offense, accident, or action under 49 U.S.C. 44709, which discloses a lack of qualification or competency, which is wholly excluded from this policy. Number 3, the person has not been found in any prior FAA enforcement action to have committed a violation of 49 U.S.C. Subtitle 7 or any regulation promulgated there for a period of 5 years prior to the date of the occurrence. And number 4, the person proves that within 10 days after the violation, or date when the person became aware or should have been aware of the violation, he or she completed and delivered or mailed a written report of the incident or occurrence to NASA. And yes, the website, of course, counts. Okay, well, there you have it. So, what happens when you submit that report? Let's move on to how reports are processed. As far as the intake, ASRS receives reports from pilots, air traffic controllers, cabin crew, dispatchers, maintenance technicians, ground personnel, and others involved in aviation operations. ASRS's report intake, which has been robust from the first days of the program, in which it averaged approximately 400 reports per month, in recent years, report intake has grown at an enormous rate. Intake now averages 1,964 reports per week and more than 7,858 reports per month. From January 1981 through December 2017, total program report intake was 1,526,728. In 2007 alone, there were 94,302 reports, which averages 7,858 reports per month, or 377 reports per working day. So now once the intake is complete, how is the report actually processed? Well, ASRS has securely processed over 1.5 million reports in its 41-year history. The process contains critical elements that ensure each report is handled in a manner that maintains reporter confidentiality while maximizing the ability to accurately assess the safety value of each report. ASRS report processing begins with the receipt of reports, which is often through electronic submission or from the post office, and then ends with a final coded report entering the ASRS database. Reports sent to the ASRS are widely regarded as one of the world's largest sources of information on aviation safety and human factors. So, the report is received, it's then date and time stamped, it's screened, alert messages are given, it's matched with others, analysts code it, there may be a callback to the reporter. The personal information, I should say, is then de-identified, which means it's physically clipped if it was a paper report or done electronically if it was done online. A quality check is done, it's entered in the database, the originals are destroyed, and then it's given out in products and services. ASRS paper reports are picked up daily from the Moffett Field Post Office or are received electronically via website electronic report submission, ERS, or ASAP data transmissions. Every report is date and time stamped based on the date of receipt. 2 ASRS analysts screen each report within 3 working days to provide initial categorization and to determine the triage of processing. ASRS analysts may identify hazardous situations from reports and issue an alert message. De-identified information is provided to organizations in positions of authority for further evaluation and potential corrective actions. ASRS retains high-level categorization of 100% of reports received. Based on initial categorization, multiple reports on the same event are brought together to form one database, quote, record. ASRS analysts identify reports that require further analysis and entry into public ASRS database. During the detailed report analysis process, reports are codified using the ASRS taxonomy. An ASRS analyst may choose to call a reporter on the telephone to clarify any information the reporter provided. This information is added to the analysis from the final record. To ensure confidentiality, all identifying data is removed, and after analysis, the ID strip, the top portion of the report, is returned to the reporter. This ID strip acts as the reporter's proof of submittal. All physical and electronic ID strip data with the reporter's name, address, date, and timestamp is removed. All reports that receive further analysis go through a final check to assure coding accuracy. Quality assurance checks are also performed for coding quality. Final coded reports enter the ASRS database. These de-identified records are then available in the ASRS database online, which is available through the ASRS website. Original reports, both physical and electronic data, are destroyed to completely ensure confidentiality. ASRS uses the information it receives to promote aviation safety through a number of products and services, such as alert messages, search requests, and a monthly newsletter, focus studies, and more. The ASRS products and services, as we just mentioned, are of course alert messages, which is safety information issued to organizations in positions of authority for evaluation and possible corrective actions. So that's when something happens, for instance, like the TWA incident, which was foreshadowed by United, that information can be given out very quickly through an alert message. Quick responses. Rapid data analysis by ASRS staff on safety issues with immediate operational importance, generally is limited to government agencies. We then have the ASRS database itself, which the public ASRS database online and data available in the database report sets or search requests are fulfilled by ASRS staff. One of my favorites is the callback newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter with lessons learned, and it's available via website and email. And then there's focused studies, which are studies and research conducted on safety topics of interest in cooperation with aviation organizations. All right, so there we have it. These programs are just an incredible wealth of information. And, I guess the government's attitude is if we're willing to give you immunity if you give us the information, because it's indicative of a constructive attitude and, frankly, it can save lives in the future. So I told you before that we have our own in air traffic control, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit right now. It's called ATSAP. And like I said, it's really the exact same thing, but it's directly for air traffic control, and it's a partnership between the FAA and our union, which is NATCA. And I'm going to read you the introduction here. And it says that in addition to welcome to ATSAP, as part of our overall safety goals, ATSAP has been established as a system for controllers and other employees to voluntarily identify and report safety and operational concerns. The collected information is reviewed and analyzed to facilitate early detection and improved awareness of operational deficiencies and adverse trends. The information specified in employee reports is used to identify the root causes and determine appropriate remedial actions, which are then monitored for effectiveness. The process promotes collaboration between employee work groups and management for the early detection of hazards and to maintain a proactive approach regarding safety concerns and corrective action recommendations. The history of ours is a little bit shorter. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of ATSAP. And it says here on the website, the ATO, in cooperation with its employee labor organizations, ATO, by the way, is the Air Traffic Organization, which is the functional part of the FAA under which air traffic control falls. They have established a voluntary safety reporting program called the Air Traffic Safety Action Program for controllers and other employees. ATSAP is modeled after the very successful aviation safety action programs used in the aviation industry. Approximately 100 aviation companies have operating ASAP programs. ASAP can be traced back to the early 70s and a voluntary safety reporting program at United Airlines. ASAPs use employee input to identify significant safety concerns and issues, operational deficiencies, non-compliance with regulations, deviations from company policies and procedures, and unusual safety events. In partnership with each participating aviation organization, employee labor organizations, and the FAA, each ATSAP report is investigated and corrective actions determined based on a non-disciplinary approach to improving safety. The purpose of ours, of course, is the same. ATSAP is modeled after the airline's ASAP programs, which is non-punitive and serves as one leg of a good safety management system. ATSAP also helps develop a strong safety culture. The intent is to identify and report all events that may lead to a breakdown in safety or increase risk in our operation. If we want to mitigate all safety risks, we need to identify and study the thousands of unreported events that might reveal the one critical safety event that could result in disaster. ATSAP reporting must be non-punitive. An employee cannot be decertified, nor can any credentialing action take place if an employee reports an event to the ATSAP program. ATSAP provides a systematic approach for controllers and others providing or supporting the provision of air traffic services per the Memorandum of Understanding with NATCA, including air traffic assistants, flight data communications specialists, and as well as managers when engaged in providing air traffic control services. Through self-reporting of safety events and cooperative follow-up, appropriate actions can be taken to improve flight safety. The benefits, of course, are that ATSAP will provide safety data that would otherwise never see the light of day without voluntary participation. So for personnel involved in a safety event, even a serious one, the program promises the response to the reports will be both non-punitive and non-disciplinary. Names are not important, events are. Employees who participate in the program will be provided feedback on actions taken to correct safety threats. Any strong safety culture must be a reporting culture. Any effective reporting culture must be a just culture. By moving beyond a reliance on reactive behaviors, the program and its participants become part of proactive solutions that mitigate risk in advance. And additionally, there's a program here called CISP, CISP. The purpose of the Confidential Information Share Program, CISP, is to demonstrate the benefit of conducting proactive safety assessments through the sharing and analysis of information collected through the ATSAP program and the airline's ASAP programs. These programs support the collection, assessment, and review of safety events from the perspectives of air traffic controllers and pilots. Merging perspectives is critical to understanding the causal factors of both known and previously unknown events. By providing a more complete representation of the National Airspace System operations, the FAA and participating airlines can more accurately identify potential hazards and develop more robust mitigation strategies. And this paragraph, of course, you guys, is perfectly in line with the crash of TWA 514, and this is the ultimate culmination of what they wanted to happen all the way back in 1974. It says, CISP has become a reliable source of qualitative data that's used to identify and develop corrective measures and mitigation strategies for current safety concerns in the NAS. When I keep saying NAS, you guys, by the way, it's National Airspace System. Reports received from air traffic personnel are evaluated by the ATSAP analysis team to determine if the information may be beneficial to the participating airlines. The analysis team consists of members representing ATO management and NATCA. Conversely, the Airline's Event Review Committee, ERC, for the Aviation Safety Action Program, ASAP, determines which pilot reports may be of benefit or interest to ATSAP. The narratives are then de-identified and forwarded through the CISP website to the other party. Briefing sheets are one of the many products produced by the program, and they can be found on the submitter page as well as the associated video vignettes. These briefing sheets are used by partner airlines as well as ATC facilities. This level of sharing information is new and has yielded significant results. Agreements with our partner airlines cover more than 75% of scheduled airline traffic in the United States. Now, believe it or not, there was actually some resistance during the implementation of this program, right? Reasons can be numerous, but the one I remember hearing most, because this was what was happening right when I got into the FAA, was a lot of the old timers were saying things like, well, now you can just do whatever you want and file an ATSAP. Well, I get that we all want people to be held accountable for their actions, sure. But the fallacy in that thinking was that this somehow relieved individual controllers of the accountability for their actions, and that just simply wasn't true. And the other thing I remember hearing a lot about was that people were using it inappropriately to complain about interpersonal stuff, right? Like their supervisor was a jerk and he was unfit for his job, or I remember when somebody went rogue at my tower and they started a war with the overlying TRACON about some things that kind of offended their personal OCD. And let me tell you, it did a lot of damage to our interfacility relationship. It was a huge bummer. You can abuse any well-intentioned program, right? And that's not news. But minus some of the growing pains, my personal belief is that our internal program has done an incredible job of getting information out there in a non-confrontational way and actually providing the feedback loop that's necessary to affect change. Does anybody want to guess what issue's been at the forefront of these reports over the last couple years? Yeah, that's right. Climb and descend via stuff. It caused a ton of confusion on both sides. It was supposed to simplify things, and I don't know, maybe it did, but ASRS and ATSAP were incredible resources for getting down to the heart of the issues that were causing trouble without punishing people for honest mistakes, which may have been caused by what are effectively very confusing procedures. And let me tell you, there was a lot of difficulty with this throughout the NAS. The best part, though, was the feedback, and we actually use that data to develop our recurrent training. And when problems in the NAS are uncovered, they can be added to the nationwide training program so that all controllers get a chance to learn. And it isn't just us. Like airlines use this data for recurrent training for all types of employees, obviously pilots, but not just pilots. And manufacturing companies, well, they do the same thing too. Matter of fact, for those companies that are seeking ISO certification, having a safety reporting program in place can be the thing that really helps make it happen. So believe me, the system actually works. And I'll tell you what, in addition to the climb and descend via stuff, I've got an example that's actually a bit more recent, and it's from the very last ATSAP safety briefing sheet that I got. It's the same as the ASAP callback. And we actually have to show up before, we sign on to a position, and we have pre-duty stuff. And going through these ATSAP reports is one of the things that we actually have to do and sign off that we took a look at it. So this last one is from the June 2018 one, and is a discussion sheet, and it's about computer navigation fixes. It says, over the years, ATSAP has received reports indicating confusion or misunderstanding by both pilots and controllers regarding the use of computer navigation fixes called CNFs. You guys have probably seen these before. These are the fixes that are depicted on sometimes instrument approach procedures and en route aeronautical charts, and they use the same symbol for like a mileage breakdown, but it's an X with 5-letter code, but it usually doesn't really make a word, and it's in parentheses. So instead of being like a triangle with a clear name, it's like a little X. Sometimes it's the bend of an airway, sometimes it's not. But there's a 5-letter code, so you could enter it into a GPS or an FMS. But what is it? Well, the Aeronautical Information Manual says that a CNF is a point defined by a latitude and longitude coordinate, and it's required to support performance-based navigation operations, PBS. The GPS receiver uses CNFs in conjunction with waypoints to navigate from point to point. And the CNFs that do appear on aeronautical charts allow pilots increased situational awareness by identifying points in the aircraft's database route of flight with points on the aeronautical chart. CNFs are random 5-letter identifiers. They're not pronounceable like waypoints, and they're placed in parentheses. And eventually, all CNFs will be given the letters CF followed by 3 consonants. For example, CFWBG. Additionally, the AIM states that CNFs are not recognized by ATC. ATC does not maintain CNFs in their database, and they do not use CNFs for air traffic control purposes. CNFs may or may not be charted on FAA aeronautical navigation products and are listed in chart legends and are for advisory purposes only. Pilots are not to use CNFs for point-to-point navigation to proceed direct, not for final flight plan, and they're not to be used in aircraft ATC communications. Well, here's the thing though. A lot of reports indicate that pilots are requesting to go to and from these points, and controllers aren't sure how to handle it. And I can't say I blame them. It's pretty interesting. So a lot of reports have been filed on both sides about this, and we get this information back in the form of feedback on these discussion sheets. So the cool part about all this is that to provide more certain guidance to air traffic controllers regarding the use of CNFs, the Air Traffic Procedures Directorate has initiated a document change proposal to actually add the information to our manual, the 7110.65, and also the pilot controller glossary. So there you go. These things get reported by both sides, and then they actually get put into practice, and things get changed that are going to alleviate the confusion. So some closing thoughts. I think safety reporting systems are an amazing tool. And safety reporting systems have a great many incentives, obviously the biggest one being immunity. But can they be abused? Yes, absolutely. Any well-intentioned program can always be abused. But if you ask me, the good far outweighs the bad. And while you can file as many as you want, they can only be used for immunity for one thing for a long period of time. So it's not like you can just do this every day and get away with whatever you want. And of course, they aren't to get you out of willful violations or accidents either. Anyway, I think the best part, though, just like I read, are these monthly briefings that we get on issues that have been brought to light by controllers and other ATO professionals and pilots throughout the national airspace system. So what do you guys think? Send me an email, head over to the website and record a comment. I'd really love to hear what you guys think about these programs. Do you use them? Or hey, if you want to tell me in person, I'll tell you what. August 18th, I'll be speaking at the EAA Chapter 14 event here in San Diego, and these guys serve a mean pancake breakfast, and I'd love to meet you there. Anyway, I want to give a special shout out to my man Daniel Zombo for the use of the song Clarity in this episode, and hope you can see why. And if I can provide some clarity for you, well, you know the website, podcastingonaplane.com. Use the contact tab, or you can message me through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or my personal favorite, if you figured out where I work, the VHF shout out. I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, that's all for now. Your frequency change is approved until next time. I'm going to report back on this frequency for the next episode. Good day. The Podcasting on a Plane podcast is presented for entertainment purposes only. My comments and those of my guests, the website's content, and any of the social media, etc. are not part of my official responsibility as a controller or an FAA employee. The views and opinions you hear on the podcast are mine and those of my guests, and not necessarily that of the FAA. There is no nexus between podcasting on a plane and the FAA. Also, while I am a CFI, I'm not your CFI. Nor am I your mechanic, your doctor, your shrink, or your spouse. This podcast is presented for entertainment, camaraderie, and fun, but is in no way, shape, or form professional advice. It's not legal counsel, and it's definitely not flight instruction. If you are in need of professional advice, get some from somewhere more appropriate than a podcast, no matter how good this one may be.